morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on still kind of a hazy day on Marcus Street. We've got an exciting show in store for you today. We'll be talking with Clemens Center Executive Director Karen Cromer about the upcoming Broadway season, finding out about that in just a little bit. A lot of breaking news from yesterday. First of all, let's start with something maybe you wouldn't thought that I would start with. The Iron Sheik, the WWE legend, passing away at the age of 81, if you had not heard. One of Hulk Hogan's biggest rivals. Okay, started with that. Why not? Starting the show a little different. Thank you to everybody who reached out yesterday. We had a lot of great back and forth. If you're new to the program, you can always contact me there. That's whether you want to weigh in on the topic we're discussing, if you want to talk about the Iron Sheik, or if you have suggestions for interviews. I know a lot of people have reached out, and they do want me to talk to RFK Jr. I will try. That may be difficult. In the past, when I was on radio, we got some big names, so I'm hoping that that'll happen as we get closer to election season. One of the big stories from last night that I want to just start with, and you can weigh in on, is Biden and his veto just yesterday, last night, canceling his $400 billion student loan handout. He vetoed that, and he says he's not going to back down. Now, President Biden vetoed the bill that would have scrapped his $400 billion student loan handout. So what we learn about the debt ceiling debacle is Biden has learned nothing about how to rein in spending. That is not obviously a priority for him. Never mind the inflation, never mind the economic turmoil that we are in. We need to continue to spend this money. $400 billion student loan handout. And he vowed he wasn't going to back down. Quote, folks, Republicans in Congress led an effort to pass a bill blocking my administration's plan to provide up to $10,000 in student debt relief and up to $20,000 for borrowers that received a Pell Grant. Nearly 90% of those relief dollars go to people making less than $75,000 a year. This was a video he posted on Twitter. Obviously, he would not do this at a press conference. I'm not going to back down on my efforts to help tens of millions of working and middle-class families. That's why I'm going to veto this bill. Now, he attacked Republicans in this. You got to remember, he's very much in campaign season as well. But he did not mention the two Democrat senators who voted to cancel the handout. That, of course, Joe Manchin. And here, Jon Tester, who joined all Republicans in voting to advance the bill last week. Independent Arizona Senator Kristen Sinema also voted in favor, with the final tally coming in at 52 to 46. Biden also had no mention of Representative Jared Golden from Maine and Representative Marie Gluskamp Perez, who joined Republicans in voting for the bill in the House. And there it was 218 to 203. The president went on to say that some of the members who voted for the bill had, quote, personally received loans to keep their small businesses afloat during the pandemic and supported huge tax cuts for corporations and the wealthy. So there's a typical line against Republicans, even though, again, he failed to mention the Democrats, but the line that it's huge tax cuts for corporations and the wealthy. But would you consider erasing this student debt, this $10,000 of student debt, akin to keeping your business afloat during the pandemic, as it was a government shutting down people from going out to restaurants, going to stores, and essentially. So that's comparing apples to oranges. No one forced you to get a student loan. I got a student loan. No one forced me to do that. But the government did force the shutdown. But again, these are general talking points from the president, because this is very much a campaign ad. Think of it in that way. But when it comes to hardworking Americans trying to get ahead, dealing with student debt relief, that's where they drew the line. I think it's wrong. This is President Biden. Let me make something really clear. I'm never going to apologize for helping working and middle-class Americans as they recover from the pandemic. Never. So this is, I don't want to read all the rules because it's just wonky numbers, but $400 billion it would have cost the government. Yes, as we know, the president has not learned lessons of what we're dealing with financially as a country and continues to want to spend. we have to take a break, but we want to talk just quickly, because I know this was breaking news everywhere yesterday, is that Trump knows he's now a target in the classified docs probe. We're going to talk about that when we come back. But let me take a short break. Again, we'll be talking with Clemens Center Executive Director Karen Cromer in just a little bit. So please stay with us. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. So prosecutors have told the former president, Trump, specifically his lawyers, according to the AFP, that he's a target of classified document probe. U.S. prosecutors have told Donald Trump's lawyers that he is a target of a probe into his handling of classified documents after leaving the presidency. Now, if you happen to catch yesterday, I wasn't aware. I would have liked to watch it, but I've watched clips. His former Vice President Mike Pence had a town hall on CNN last night where he weighed in on this. We will get to that, hopefully, a little bit. I want to talk about that town hall. We have a lot to cover this morning, why I keep saying perhaps we'll get to it. Now, the former president denied, first of all, any mishandling or doing anything wrong. He said, "No one has told me I'm being indicted, and I shouldn't be because I have done nothing wrong. But I've assumed for years that I'm a target of the weaponized DOJ and FBI, starting with the Russia hoax, the no collusion Mueller report, impeachment hoax number 1, impeachment hoax number 2, the perfect Ukraine phone call, and various other scams and witch hunts," he added. When you put a list together like that, it is pretty wild. And I know I've talked about this previously on the program, but something like this has very detrimental effects on the future of politics and weaponization of the DOJ and the FBI and like that. But it also, I think ironically, helps the former president because he has talked about the swamp. Actually, former Congressman Joe Semplinsky and I talked about this last week. You have a man who has run on the fact that he was going to clean up the swamp and the Washington elites were out to get him. And very much time and time again with these, whether it's the trial that they're going to put on right at the beginning of the primary season, whether it's this, it does play into that narrative from the former president. As of the time I'm writing this note to you, no one has told me that I'm being indicted. I'm watching everything unfold in real time, just as you are, the letter read. This was from the presidential campaign for former President Trump. But I've also read leaked reports that the Biden-appointed special counsel is asking a Washington, D.C. grand jury to indict me. So that's a major story. Now, I do want to indicate, and Fox News mentions this, to be clear, Trump has not, nor does this suggest that he will be charged with a crime. The notification is simply to notify the former president that he has become a target and to allow him time to present evidence in front of a grand jury. So I think that's something that we needed to clarify when you see the coverage. Now, just earlier, when was it? Earlier this week on Fox News, Senator Ted Cruz gave his thoughts on this. He called Garland the most political attorney general in our nation's history. Mark my words. Okay, this was said on Monday. Mark my words. I believe Merrick Garland will indict Donald Trump. He wants to indict Donald Trump because he hates Donald Trump. He hates him. He's angry. Merrick Garland is angry that he wasn't confirmed to the Supreme Court. And that's a really good point because Merrick Garland, if you recall, the political elites, he was up in the running under Obama to be on the Supreme Court. But there was some back and forth. The Republicans were kind of blocking it. And the Democrats didn't fight because they were so confident that Hillary was going to beat Trump that they had no worries, that there's no sense putting up this huge political fight. We'll just wait until after the election. And then, of course, we see what happens. We've got a lot more to talk about. We're going to jump over to New York State for just a moment, and then we're going to be talking with Clemens Center Executive Director Karen Cromer. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV. Big Fox. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. I wanted to highlight quickly on tomorrow's program, I don't know if you've seen the ads, but the Belmont is going to be right here on Big Fox on Saturday. Well, we've asked a representative from Tioga Downs to come on the program, Andrew Dembski. We're going to have a little fun talking about who we should pick, if that's something that you like to do. Have a little fun betting the horses, but that's going to be a great race. I know we're not looking at a Triple Crown, but that everybody has been saying. I think I mentioned in an article last week that this has a real potential for being an amazing race with the horses that have entered. So that's on tomorrow's program. I received do you want to know the easiest way to get on Frankly Speaking? If you comment, I guess, is to be very nice. And we've received such nice ones, but I thought this was extra nice, and we'll take that down. So there's how you contact me. And I've received quite a few, and I really do appreciate that. But you don't have to always be nice. You can always let the truth be known. Another great show. I predict you are headed for greatness. But thank you. Your choice of topics is so interesting and on target. Also, your down-to-earth, common-sense view of reality is a breath of fresh air in spite of the Canadian wildfires. That's what I like the most. That's what I read. Thank you so very much. Well, thank you, and thank you to everybody who has reached out about the program. I always love to hear questions, comments, concerns, criticisms, and we tried to read. Yesterday, I had a chance to read quite a few of them to you because sometimes we move so quick I can't put them up on screen. So again, thank you, and I joke there that the easiest way to get on the show is to be nice, but it is very, very kind of you. So a couple of New York State issues. First of all, we talked about this, I want to say last week. The FAA agreed, I think when we talked about it, it was still up in the air, to house migrants at the JFK building. And I had said at the time, think of all the security you have to go through to just board a plane or to be in the airport. And so it kind of shocked me that this was one of the options. Well, it shocked a lot of New York Republican congressional delegation as well on Wednesday, the whole delegation, I should say. They signed a scathing letter to the head of the Federal Aviation Administration and the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, condemning this decision. And I mention it because our Congressman, Nick Langworthy, was a part of this letter, of course, co-signed by Elise Stefanik, Mark Molinaro, Claudia Tenney, Nick Ledloda, Andrew Garbarino, and it was authored by Representative Anthony D'Esposito. Oh, I missed on the co-sign, Brandon Williams and Mike Lawler. They denounced this. Quote, the recent decision by the FAA and the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey to house illegal migrants at JFK Airport poses both a security threat to one of America's largest transportation hubs and represents the palpable failures of the Biden administration's disastrous border policy. I'm glad many of my New York congressional colleagues join me in rebuking the out-of-touch bureaucrats at the FAA and Port Authority who prioritize migrants over America's national security. There's a lot more to that letter. This was a piece, obviously, you can see there from the New York Post. Finally, the 9/11 Commission carefully laid out recommendations to prevent and combat acts of terrorism, some of which addressed major vulnerabilities in general and cargo aviation security, such as inadequate screening and the need for layered security systems. The letter continues, the housing of unvetted migrants on the campus of one of the world's busiest airports willfully ignores public safety. If we learned anything from observing the southwest border, it's that Customs and Border Protection and immigration and customs enforcement officers are often pulled away from their duties in order to tend to the humanitarian crisis, a situation we cannot afford to replicate at JFK. And that is, a humanitarian crisis is a term that has not been used enough, this humanitarian crisis caused by the Biden administration. The letter concludes by imploring the officials to reverse course, calling the plan misguided. So thank you to our congressman for speaking up, Congress members, I should say, for speaking up on that. Speaking of New York in general, we've talked about this with Senator Phil Palmisano and the campaign finance rules. If you haven't really followed this, it almost seems unbelievable. Basically what the rule is, let's say I'm running for office. Let's say I'm an incumbent and you donate to my campaign. Great, you like me. That's wonderful. Thank you. Now, the person that doesn't like me, their tax dollars are matching that amount that you gave to me. So think of essentially you're helping to pay maybe an AOC's campaign as a taxpayer. They just changed it. So originally, it was supposed to be contributions up to $250 eligible for matching public funds, okay? So his small contributions were being matched, which is still I disagree with. I think it helps the incumbent a lot, but again, that was what has been. I think the law. I think that was enacted last year. But the changes they want to make, the first $250 of any contribution, no matter how large, would be eligible for matching funds. So basically, we're wasting public money, taxpayers' dollars, on big donors. Joanne Zanay, senior counsel in the Elections and Government Program of the Brennan Center for Justice, described the legislation as damaging and said it would further empower mega donors who already wield tremendous influence and would betray the trust of New Yorkers. Matching part of a huge donation would severely undercut both the spirit and the purpose. So now it's not just $250 match. It's, say you get a gigantic donation from a mega donor. That's going to have $250 matched as well, no matter how large. The first $250 of any contribution, no matter how large that contribution is, you, the taxpayer, are going to match at least, you're going to do the $250 max. It's typical Albany. Come up with a bad idea and then try to make it worse and more, in my words, corrupt. So there's a few New York things. I can't run too late because we have our guest, Clemens Center Executive Director Karen Cromer, on the program. They have an amazing Broadway season coming up. I don't want to give too much away because she's going to tell us all about it. So that's when we come back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Stay with us. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We're going to be talking to Karen Cromer in just a moment. I did want to just reiterate about this public funding because I do think it's so outlandish. And I want you to better understand what we're learning about this new proposed change. So it did go into effect. I looked during the break. It did go into effect this year, the original plan, which was every small donation of $250 or less was being matched by you, the taxpayer. So if I donate to a candidate that I like, you, whether you like that candidate or not, are matching that $250. Okay? So it was supposed to be, again, I think it really helps the incumbent, but it was supposed to be, to encourage these small donations from, I guess, the common person in Albany speak, maybe. But the new changes would dilute that. So here's what, and this is coming from the Buffalo News, just to better understand it. The bill now likely to be passed by the legislature. Again, a bad bill originally, in my opinion, now making it even worse, which was, I think, one of the biggest fears of this bill in the first place, was it was going to again, help incumbents even more. It was going to basically just have us, the taxpayer, in an already broke state of New York, to fund incumbents, because it's going to be an advantage for incumbents. And who's in charge? Who's got the supermajority in Albany? So it's a bonus of taxpayers' dollars to Democrat incumbents. But the bill's now likely to be passed, as I said, would remove the $250 cap, so that the first $250 of a donation of any size, up to the maximum amount, are matched with public funding. So originally, you put in $200, taxpayers do $200. You do $500, not going to be matched by taxpayers. Now, you could receive an $18,000 donation as a politician, $18,000 donation, and see the first $250 of that $18,000 paid for, or not paid for, but matched by taxpayers. So there goes any incentive for a candidate to rely on small donors. Again, helping the Democrat incumbents. It almost seems too outlandish at a time when our state is so broke, but typical Albany, it is not. It is already enacted, and now they're just making it worse. One last New York State issue, and then we're going to get to our interview as well. Wow, two. Do I have time? No, I better take a break. I did think that this was kind of funny, not on the face of it, but on the spelling error. New York City is suing 30 New York counties over the migrant policy. So, you had the state of emergencies that were enacted. Do you see on the list there? Chemung County. So I guess Executive Moss should be fine. Hopefully they don't sue Chemung. This is coming from New York State of politics, but New York City has sued more than 30 municipalities and local leaders, mostly in upstate New York, alleging they, quote, have sought to wall off their borders, okay, through emergency orders that obstruct the city's efforts to relocate migrants upstate in a manner that is explicitly permitted by law and required by a statewide emergency. Hold on, they could not have really, I'm going to scroll up so you can see it. So, do they really they have sought to wall off their borders? We wouldn't be in this problem if we did that as a country, right? That's the language they use. So, that lawsuit hitting Chemung and some of the surrounding counties that decided to be proactive in this and deal with a crisis ahead of time, a crisis created by Washington. There we go. We've got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Our guest coming up next, Karen Cromer from Clements Center. Stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is the M.A. Neal Financial Services section of our program, and we're being joined by the Clements Center Executive Director, Karen Cromer. Thanks so much for being on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with a big congratulations on the announcement, the 2023-24 Broadway season. You have quite a list here.
We've got 5 fabulous shows. We hope folks will take advantage of this opportunity to see Broadway in their backyard.
What has the reaction been so far? It must be overwhelming because these are all hits.
Well, we let our subscribers know at Legally Blonde that this was the season. They were thrilled. We got a great round of applause for the titles. And so far, we're trending 15% ahead of last year. So that's good for any business.
Yeah, oh, absolutely it is. I'm excited. First off, right out the gate, the first one, September 29th to the 30th, Jesus Christ Superstar. And it's hard to believe that that's celebrating 50 years.
Yeah, no kidding. We've had that tune in our head, Superstar, for so long. And it's a new production. It's not your grandparents' Superstar.
Oh, wow.
So we want to make sure people are aware of that. It'll be thrilling for all of us to have the company. They're actually coming to do their technical rehearsal. They'll be here several weeks ahead of the production. And they'll be spending quite a lot of time here in Elmira, so we're glad to have them.
Oh, that's wonderful. And then Mamma Mia, which is just a mega smash hit.
Again, another anniversary tour.
Is that right?
25 years for Mamma Mia, and we all know every bit of that show.
And I hope you don't mind, we'll go through each one.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Come from
is the one that's up next.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one.
That one is 7,000 stranded passengers off the airlines that had to find somewhere to land. They landed in Newfoundland.
Okay.
And needed somewhere to stay during the 9/11 disaster.
Oh, man.
So it's the story of those passengers being taken in by the locals. And you could imagine a similar thing happening here.
Yes.
And all of a sudden having friends and neighbors you never knew you had before. So I think it'll be very compelling, and there will be a little bit of educating our constituents to know exactly what that story is about. So I'm glad I have this opportunity to share that.
Absolutely. And then the Cher show, slur that together, the Cher show. That's
the
tough.
Cher show. Yeah, and that one's going to be all sparkles and all the fabulous Bob Mackie costumes. It's the story of her life. It's a Tony Award-winning show, and we want to, let everybody know how much of a spectacle that's really going to be. And I'm sure we'll be vacuuming up crystals and sequins and feathers for ages after that.
And just to prove that you have something for everybody, then it's Shrek the Musical.
We will wrap up the season with a great family show. I'm looking so forward to seeing that on stage.
So how long does it take to plan a Broadway season for the Clements Center?
We've been planning this for about 6 to 8 months.
Wow.
There's a lot of coordination. We are just one stop on a tour for each of these shows. So we have a partner that helps us coordinate everything. NAC Entertainment in Binghamton steps in to help us get our stage on that list. I love to brag and say when a show is here doing technical rehearsal and they do their first performance here in Elmira, you know, the world premiere,
But it is.
they have tour T-shirts that say Elmira, New York at the top.
Isn't that
and that's
cool?
a really cool thing.
Well, and it goes to show you how important the Clemens Center is and keeping this alive, which I want to get to in just a moment. But you do have an amazing season year after year. So you must see season ticket holders come back year after year. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. We've got some that have been coming for 30 plus years.
Wow.
And they are adamant they've got to have those same seats. And they, you know, they know exactly where to go and get their snacks at the concession stand and head right on in.
Who's more passionate, do you think, season ticket holders, the Bills or Clemens Center?
You know, that one's a very close tie.
Okay.
We have one guy in. I knew immediately there's a guy that would tell you right off the bat that either one would be fine for him.
Fine.
And I think some of our patrons know who that is too.
Okay. So, what are some of the benefits to buying a season ticket? Because I know I'm sure you can buy individually, of course, but what are the benefits for season ticket holders?
Well, right now they're only available as package.
Oh, okay.
The good thing is that you do get the same seats time after time. You know exactly where you're heading, so you might not have to show up as early as someone else might who's unfamiliar with the theater. It's a great way to contribute to the Clemens Center. It locks these shows in. They do ask for sales reports. They like to know each week how they're doing.
Oh, wow.
Because it has to be worth their while to come to a small market like ours. We're one of the smaller markets.
Sure.
And it's kind of remarkable that we have a theater like this showing these quality shows.
It is.
On our stage, that we actually are large enough to accommodate these big productions, thanks to work that was done many years ago before I arrived, to extend the stage. So we're just very fortunate to have this space, and subscribers get first notice when a new show goes up. We do have some things in our pocket we haven't unveiled yet.
Oh.
So there will be special attractions added. So they get first notice, first opportunity to purchase. So that's a big deal.
And this ties in perfectly because you are such an important part of the community. The Clemens Center is really synonymous with Elmira and our area, and you get amazing shows for such a smaller market. Let's say we already have our season tickets, or let's say we're on the fence, maybe we're not sure if we'll be able to support it. How can we support in general the historic Clemens Center?
It's great to become a member of the Clemens Center.
Gotcha.
That gives you the additional benefit of ticket exchange.
Okay.
So you've got something that pops up on your calendar,
Sure.
and you're not able to make an event, then you have the opportunity to get a credit on an account to use that money towards another show.
Okay.
So then when a special attraction pops up, you've got a credit on your account, and you can make use of it that way. So that's a good benefit of being a member. We are actually working on making some tuning to that membership opportunity, and we'll be unveiling that in the spring. So great thing to be a member, gives us a little bit more for operations. This
Sure.
is an historic building insofar as we're almost 100 years old.
Wow.
So you can imagine the maintenance that it takes. Even when we were closed, there was maintenance and systems that had to be, oiled and ready to go, because things just don't do well when they're sitting idle. So you can imagine.
And I'm assuming that you're always looking for sponsors as well. Is that right?
We're always looking for businesses to sponsor, to become a part of the center. We have a playbill that we publish both digitally and in hard copy. And we have opportunities throughout the year to become a bigger part of the Clemens Center. And it's a nice warm fuzzy for business customers to see that, yes, the business that I'm patronizing is contributing back in a significant way to the arts and culture in Elmira. We are a big industry. And people realized, I think, when we were closed,
Right.
what an impact we have, what a domino effect
I agree.
there was on other businesses, restaurants, bars, hotels, and amenities in this downtown area.
And you mentioned being closed. Like, we all, of course, did not know what was going to happen, but how difficult was it for you to come back?
We were the first ones out, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
As soon as they said you can no longer host more than 500 people, that was the first
Yeah.
indication we were closed. We thought maybe a couple of weeks and then we'd be back. 498 days later, we held our next event. It was very, very eerie to be here during that time. We got to the point where we had to cut down to just essential employees.
Of course.
And we reached out virtually to continue some of our programming, to continue to serve the audience. I know people were a little tired of virtual programming at a certain point, but I think it served us well. We reminded people
Right.
how much they missed coming and being with friends and family in an atmosphere where you're all enjoying the same program together, and what that does to your heart and soul. You really miss that when you don't have the opportunity to have it. So we were able to live off of grants from federal government, and our donors stepped up in a big way. Some doubled or tripled their annual membership, and that really kept us going.
One other thing I want to mention before we wrap up here is that, is there volunteer opportunities? Because I'm sure you're always in need of someone that can help with these gigantic productions.
We have lots of opportunity for volunteers, and in fact, if we don't have enough, it really pinches the services that we can provide to patrons. So, and the big bonus of being a volunteer is that you are afforded the opportunity to maybe see some of the show.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, who wouldn't want to do that?
Yeah.
So yeah, we always need folks to help scan people in at the doors, to take coats, help at the concession stands, and to usher folks into their seats. So there's a lot of things you can do if you're okay with standing on your feet for a couple of hours. You may be able to take a seat once the curtain goes up and see some of the show.
One thing I thought of just before we wrap up, when a show comes into town, how long are they typically here? Are they here a long time, or is it in and out? Because they are traveling all over the country.
Yeah, typically it's just in and out. They load in the first morning at 8. They do the show that night, which is a remarkable turnaround to unload those trucks, get everything up, and we hire in locals to help. The staging union comes in, helps us get everything mounted, and then several of them stay to run the cues for the show. And then they play one more show the next night, and then they pack up on their way. We do have 3 technical rehearsals scheduled in this coming season, and you will see some of the shows and their casts and crews and their marketing departments, even their creatives come in from the city to just check all the details before they go out on the road. So some of them will be here 2-3 weeks before their performances.
But it almost sounds like a rock tour at this point, doesn't it?
Well, it's quite a lifestyle.
Yeah.
They the stagehands are knuckleheads because they're first in, last out, and then they got a few hours on the bus, and then they're
Back at it.
rolling stuff off the truck the next morning.
That's
So,
dedication. Wow. All right, I can't have them all be softball questions. Got to ask the toughest question. Which
right.
show this season are you looking forward to the most?
Jesus Christ Superstar.
Yeah. Okay,
no
good.
doubt about it.
Yeah, we're on the
yeah.
same page. Okay. Karen Cromer from the Clemens Center, the executive director, has been our guest. Thanks so much for being on the program.
Thank you very much, Fred. I appreciate it.
Of course, anytime. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We've got a lot more to talk about, but before that, thank you again to our guest, Karen Cromer from the Clemens Center. She's the executive director. Those are your shows. There's some big shows coming up, so we want to thank Karen Cromer for being on the program. I would also highlight, because we got some questions off there, I did pre-tape that yesterday if you're not aware, so I had some questions I wish I would have thought to ask her, but here's the contact information for the Clemens Center if you want to become a season ticket holder, or if you just want to find out more. There's all the information you need to know, so we'll keep that up on screen for just a second. As I mentioned, tomorrow's program, yeah, I'm excited about this because we've got the Belmont right here on Big Fox on Saturday. So this is going to be a big race. I know there's no Triple Crown, but that does not matter. This is a kind of a horse racers type of race. This is going to be really tricky to pick. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and that's why we asked Andrew Dembski from Tioga Downs to come on. We're going to have a little fun picking his brain and maybe handicapping the race just a little bit, maybe help you out, give you a little bit of an edge, hopefully, because I know I could use a little bit of an edge. Yesterday we brought this story up and got a lot of reaction from you, and as I say throughout the show, you can always contact me. I do want to talk about Mike Pence's town hall, but there's not a lot there, and we just have a few minutes, and I think this article is a little more important when we talk about New York State politics. We talked about this reparations decision, and it looks like it's going to pass, that we are going to have investigation, for lack of a better word, into reparation. And what the Post editorial board says in this piece, and I would highly recommend, because we can't get to the whole thing, but I would highly recommend that you read it. It looks like it's going to pass. It's pure pointless posturing if it weren't so poisonous. It's open-ended focus on grievances, not healing or justice as it's claimed. Thus, this bill's backers are already saying it'll be about far more than slavery. As in California, it's also take up alleged discrimination in housing and incarceration rates. That is the standard newest left litany, according to the Post editorial board. All social disparities are racism. End of discussion. And the exercise is guaranteed to end in tears, as we saw in California. The commission would just issue non-binding recommendations that the legislature would have to codify and pass for signature by Governor Hochul. And the state, already facing a budget crisis in coming years, would also have to pay for it. And this is, I mentioned this on the program yesterday with Gavin Newsom. When push came to shove, even ultra woke Governor Gavin Newsom told California's reparations seekers to go pound sand. That was pretty easy for him to do when the price tag was estimated to be $800 billion in California. So the claim is that it's really more about conversation, which is a standard talking point in really anything in politics coming from the left. Reparations is not just about a paycheck, it's much more. It's atoning. It's talking about what we can do to support and uplift black New Yorkers throughout this great state. Since it won't lead to any paychecks, the Post editorial board said, why jump through the hoop at all? Just talk about the practical stuff. Have the conversation, not the atoning, etc. Indeed, the Golden State exercise did nothing but poison, and that's why I bring this up, poison race relations. New York would only be getting the same. It only divided us more, as someone had texted me yesterday. It's as if the politicians just want to divide us further. Then again, poisoning race relations is a proven path to power for some politicians and a profitable one for many others, in politicians and outside of the political realm. Yes, fully face history, this is the point, with all its warts. But society as a whole, and African Americans, descendants of slaves or not, gain nothing from empty political stunts. If the legislature really wanted to improve the lives of black New Yorkers, it'd be looking at commissions on the failure of public education and the crisis in public safety. But honest investigations would point fingers right at Albany. So virtue signaling is all we get. Yes, more examples of politicians trying to divide us even further. That's why I mentioned it when we wrap up, because I've got to take another short break. We're going to talk a little bit about Pence, some of the presidential stuff. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. You are watching Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We do have to take one last short break, so I wanted to mention something that I kind of promised you I'd talk about at the beginning of the program, and that was the town hall with Mike Pence yesterday at CNN. I was not aware of this town hall, and it must have came on kind of quick because he just declared yesterday as well. So that's interesting. And the one takeaway that I had watching clips, again, I looked at what CNN thought were the takeaways, whatever. I mean, I will say he was very, very strong on his position on pro-life. That was one very, very strong. Most of what CNN took away from it was his, I guess you could say, attacks on Trump. I don't know if you want to call them attacks or criticisms of Trump. Made his abortion stance clear, as it says here. And he did criticize Trump a little bit. But what I thought was interesting, they asked about pardoning Trump if Pence were to become president. And he said, I don't want to speak about hypotheticals. I'm not sure I'm going to get elected president of the United States. I believe we have a fighting chance. I really believe it. Well, of course, Dana Bash continued to push him on this because that's what these town halls are about. It's the same reason why Chris Christie is getting so much attention. They want it to be about attacks on the former president. Chris Christie polling at 1%. He should not be getting the kind of coverage that he is, maybe even less than 1%. And Mike Pence, that's why she continues to ask. They know they get ratings if they have a candidate, or any Republican for that matter, that will criticize the former president. He even said after being asked again that you're persistent. You're living up to your reputation. But yeah, CNN's reputation is not very good right now. There are real issues the American people are facing, and rather than talking about that, I want to talk about what the people here in Iowa are talking about, which is the failed policies of Biden. He said, he went on to continue, he hoped that the federal grand jury hearing evidence against Trump in the classified document case decides against indicting the former president, arguing that it would be a drastic and divisive step. And that's where why I wanted to bring it up. Excuse me. It would be very divisive. It would send a signal for future candidates. I think it would also send a terrible message to the wider world, Pence said. I mean, we're the emblem of democracy. We're the symbol of justice in the world. And this is a serious matter, which has already happened once in New York of indicting a former president of the United States. It sends a terrible message to the world. I hope the DOJ thinks better of it and resolves these issues without an indictment. I would just hope that there would be a way for them to move forward without the dramatic and drastic and divisive step of indicting a former president. I don't think they're worried about the future in that way or what it looks like at the national stage. It's all about going after Trump and getting this win in their mind, the win for their career or for whatever the case may be, or sending the signal to the swamp that they won. All right, let's take our last break. Man, this show's going quick. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We are back with Frankly Speaking. We got to wrap things up quickly. I'm your host, Frank Acom, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Another really interesting piece about RFK. I swear I don't mean to bring him up as often as I do, but his rising profile has Democrats worried. And this is the second or third article we've had in 2 weeks with the same mindset. But the reason I bring it up is there is Michael Caruso, a Democrat strategist who actually worked with Bernie Sanders, said Democrats would be foolish to mock or belittle RFK Jr. Every time we make fun of those who hold fringe positions, we lose. The Democrat Party acting smug never works. There's a good point there. You could equate it to the Bernie Sanders campaign against Hillary, laughing at Bernie as he's packing in stadiums, and look what ultimately happened. Take RFK seriously, Biden. If you don't, we could create a stronger Republican Party that beats us in 2024. Like Bernie did in 2016, RFK has the potential to activate fringe anger if we mock them. That is it for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Thank you to our guest, Karen Cromer from the Clemens Center. Sounds like a great Broadway season. Tomorrow on the program, Andrew Dembski from Tioga Downs. We're going to talk about the Belmont, which is right here on Big Fox on Saturday. So you want to watch that race. It's going to be a good race. That's it for me today. I look forward to talking to you tomorrow, starting at 7 a.m. right here on Frankly Speaking on Big Fox. Hi, I'm Frank Acom. Thanks for checking out our YouTube page. We'll be uploading each edition of Frankly Speaking 1 week after the original air date. So, let me remind you to watch the live version of Frankly Speaking, weekday mornings starting at 7, only on WYDC TV, Big Fox.